Back to Miller. Oh, my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beef Up Front here on Pig Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined alongside Joe Kmetz for our weekly college football show. Can't believe it, the Week 10 edition already. When I was looking at the schedule earlier, it's like some teams only have 3 games left after this week. It's pretty insane how quick the season has came and gone, but this is where we, as we've been kind of saying the past few weeks, starting to really build up to the games that matter the most. And what we're really looking forward to is what's that college football playoff going to look like. And I think you still have about 7 to 8 teams that I think have a legitimate shot at it, maybe even up to 10. And at this point in the season, if you have that many teams still in the mix, I think that's a good thing for the sport down the stretch. So as always, Joe, welcome back. And how are we?
Coyle, I'm fantastic. As you're saying that, I'm just pulling up the rankings now to kind of look, because I agree, especially with the first playoff rankings coming out tomorrow night.
That is tomorrow? Okay.
We're really going to get a lot. I thought it was the first Tuesday in November. I don't know why I'm not complaining that they're doing it tomorrow, but I thought it was like the week after. But especially, with those rankings coming out, we're going to really get a lot clearer picture. We have 5 undefeated Power 5 teams. That's Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington. Obviously, Michigan and Ohio State are going to have to play going forward. And then even with the one-loss teams, you have Oregon, Texas, Bama, Penn State, OU, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a very quiet 7-1, by the way. Not being talked about enough. And then you have, the more long shot 7-1s like Missouri and Louisville. Then after that, it's, Power 5 teams with 2 losses. You have your Air Force in there, but Air Force would need complete chaos to even sniff the playoff, and go undefeated. But I would agree you have probably about like 8 to 10 teams that still have a very real shot. And you have a couple of long shot teams aside that. But we kind of got to see some contenders and pretenders. With the downfall of North Carolina is going to be studied in classrooms, because the Virginia-Georgia Tech back-to-back is unbelievable to me. Like, if you told me a couple weeks ago, okay, yeah, maybe they'd get upset to Georgia Tech, like whatever, it is UNC football, but losing to Virginia too, like the shine's completely off that team. They're dead in the water in terms of the ACC, in my opinion, as well. You had no one talking about Clemson lost their 4th game of the season already. You just have a lot of these
Notre
teams.
Dame this week.
They're going to beat Notre Dame, by the way. I know it's going to happen. They're going to win by like 10 points. And Dabo's going to be saying, we beat Jesus because we put our team's name in his name, image, and likeness. And I'm going to be so mad. But Dabo's definitely going to win this weekend. I see Notre Dame going down to South Carolina and losing. But another, great bounce back slate after last weekend. Kind of a dud. We had the great Oklahoma-Kansas game to start off the day, but kind of a, dud of a weekend. Nothing really, like with Georgia just dominating once again. Wisconsin, Ohio State was exciting early. Ohio State, kind of pulled away later. Ended up winning by 14, but definitely a good bounce-back slate. I'm excited for this week.
Yeah, this one's got a lot. It was one of those slates where it was hard to kind of narrow down the list of the top games of the week. But as always, we got there, and we started off on Saturday at noon. We have number 25 Kansas State, who has been on an absolute roll in their last 4 games, at number 7 Texas, coming off a big-time win over BYU. Noon kick on Fox. Texas is a 5-point favorite. Over-under is sitting at 51.5, Joe. Will the Longhorns protect home field in this game and stay alive in the Big 12?
I think they will, and I actually hate that I'm picking Texas here. Texas 35, Kansas State 21. I'm going Texas minus the 5, over 51.5. Just really think Texas – I know Ewers is out. I know, they looked good against BYU last week. I know Kansas State is a very good team. The fact that Kansas State's only 25th, like their 2 losses are at Mizzou, and did they lose at Oklahoma State or is that at home?
Yeah, at Oklahoma State.
And then Oklahoma State in the rankings would be 26. They're the top team in the receiving votes. So not bad losses. I don't understand why Kansas State's only 25th. I think they're a very good football team. If this game was in Manhattan, my pick would be completely flipped. But I really just think this Texas team is figuring it out. I think that Worthy should be a legitimate Heisman contender in terms of importance. Maybe not stats, jumping off the page, but in terms of guys that are important to their team, like we're doing like a most valuable player type thing, he's definitely up there. I think Texas is going to get a statement win at home. Love that this is the big noon kick. I think this is going to be a perfect way to start the day. Love the over. Hate Texas -5, but I love the over in this game. I think this is going to be a sneaky, high-scoring affair. I don't know if Kansas State's just going to be able to have the firepower to keep up with Texas. If they can make it a physical game, which they're very capable of doing, then, throw everything out the window what I said. But Bama or Texas proved that they can, beat a physical team with what they did going into Bama. So that's why this, game doesn't really worry me. Like I said, I'm picking them to win by 2 touchdowns, but it wouldn't shock me if they only won by a field goal. So I'm going to stay away from the -5 in real life, but for the purpose of the show, I'll take Texas -5.
Yeah, since Kansas State's loss to Oklahoma State back on October 6th, Kansas State has been on a tear. They've outscored their opponents during that stretch 130-24. That includes their last 2 victories by a combined score of 82-3. So the Kansas State defense has really been clicking, and this week they're facing the Texas team that, without Ewers, Malik Murphy in at quarterback now, just had his real first significant playing time last week against BYU. Didn't really need to do much as the defense played really well, but he only threw for 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I heard he looked pretty solid. Didn't really get to catch much of that game, but the Longhorns defense came to play and really, I think, carried the team in that one, holding BYU to only 6. I think these are two teams, though, that have defenses that are playing at a very high level. So I think I actually really like the under in this one, Joe. You really are high on the over. I really like the under in this game. I think the defenses, and like you said, the way that Kansas State stylistically usually plays a physical brand of ball, and we saw Texas, they were able to do that against Alabama as well. I think we're going to kind of see these two teams go head-to-head, and a lot of play in the trenches in this one. It's a game, though, I had circled on the calendar at the beginning of the year. I think we see the winner of this one go to the Big 12 title game. Kansas State was my team at the beginning of the year to win the Big 12. I think they had the 3rd best odds. I got them at like plus 500. So I'm still rooting for them heavy in this game to win it. But they need to win this game. The winner of this game, I think, has a very clear path to get to that Big 12 title game. This Kansas State team is super physical. Will Howard as well, an experienced quarterback. He was their quarterback over the second half of last year. He won that Big 12 title game against TCU. I feel like that gets lost in the shuffle just because TCU went to the playoff championship. But Will Howard beat TCU in the Big 12 title game. He's played in these big games before. And Malik Murphy, he's an inexperienced quarterback. He's only had 1 start at the collegiate level, and I think that's going to be used against him in this one. We saw kind of Kyle McCord against Drew Aller. There was a significant kind of level of play in their experience in that one, and I think that was one of the big things in that game. So I'm going to lean towards Kansas State in this one, actually, to win this one outright on the road. Will Howard, like I said, played in these big games. The defense is really clicking, and I think Kansas State is one of the best teams in the country right now, the way that they've been playing. So I'm going to have the Wildcats go to Austin and get the big-time win. I'll go a lower-scoring game, though, 23-20. So Kansas State +5 in the under of 51.5. Second game of the week, staying in the Big 12, potentially the last game in this rivalry ever. I don't know if I believe that, just because I think this is one of those rivalries we'll see get, revived when we're 30, 40 years old, something down the line. But this is number 10, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Last game as teams in the Big 12 against each other, 3:30 kick on ABC. Oklahoma is a 6-point favorite, and the over-under is 63. What are your thoughts on this game, Joe?
Yeah, Coyle. I could see this being kind of like how they did with the backyard brawl. They took like a 10-year hiatus, brought it back, and everyone was like, oh, man, that's so cool. Why don't they play every year? It's like, well, yeah, obviously they should be playing every year. And if the SEC is going to let, Georgia play Georgia Tech, I know that's not exactly a really juiced up rivalry, but like Kentucky play Louisville, there's no reason why Oklahoma can't play Oklahoma State every year. I love Oklahoma State in this one. I think they've completely turned it around. I'm going Oklahoma State 45, Oklahoma 29. First of all, the fact that, like you said, this could be the last Bedlam in years in terms of the atmosphere. Not, the players are going to get up regardless, but the atmosphere at this game, the amount of hatred that is going to be in the stadium towards Oklahoma, it's going to be something like you've never seen. I wish this was the 7:30 game because it would be a war zone. Stillwater is going to be crazy with how much they're just going to want, like they're going to be living for this win. Because if Oklahoma State can get this win, and the last one in a while, you have bragging rights for X amount of years. Even if Oklahoma fans can be like, oh, look at us, we're in the SEC. Doesn't matter. You lost to us last time. This game being in Oklahoma State is all the difference in this one. I think Oklahoma, over the last 2 weeks, obviously losing to Kansas, but even the week before, surviving against UCF, I think has really gotten exposed. If you look at before, that Texas game, their schedule really wasn't great. They were feeding kind of on lower level competition, getting fat and happy, getting up for Texas like their Super Bowl. And then the hangover after that Texas game has been insane. They had a bye week and then had two, snoozer games. I think this Oklahoma State team, on the other hand, is in the complete opposite direction. They're going up. They have one of the most inexplicable losses I've ever seen. A home loss, 33-7 to South Alabama, who's currently 4-4. They were on the show at the beginning of the year. We thought they were going to be a lot better than they are. But they got smoked in that game. Then they lost at Ames the game after that a week later. And everyone thought Oklahoma State was dead. Well, then they rattle off Kansas State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, or West Virginia, Cincinnati, 4 straight wins. Really love the Pokes here. I think Gabriel might be a little bit fraudulent as well. And I thought I was Ollie Gordon. The last 2 games, I believe he's ran for 270, over 200 yards rushing in his past 2 games each. He's been on a crazy tear. I think he's going to have a great game. I think Oklahoma State is just going to smash Oklahoma. Because if there's one turnover and the crowd starts to, smell the blood in the water, it's going to be Oklahoma. I feel like this game could actually get ugly quick. And normally, in a rivalry like this, I'm stealing a little bit of your thunder, Coyle, from the notes, but you would think this is a really close rivalry. It's not. Oklahoma has owned and dominated the series. But this is a game I always think, I'm surprised it wasn't the last game of the season, because I always think, all right, Ohio State, Michigan at noon, 3:30, we got the Iron Bowl, and then the night game, we have Oklahoma State. But not the case. They're playing it this week. Still can't wait to sit on the couch and watch this game. I really hope this is normally I just hope the game is good. This is one of the few times I actually will be rooting very hard for Oklahoma State to win this game.
Yeah, going back to kind of what you were saying, how Oklahoma's dominated this rivalry. They've won this rivalry 91, 19, and 7. So 91 wins, 19 losses, 7 ties, all time against Oklahoma State. That shocked me because I usually think that this is a back and forth type of series. But Oklahoma's won 8 of their last 10 against Oklahoma State and 17 of the last 20. So like you said, Joe, I think Oklahoma State wants to, the best they can, find a way to go out on top in this rivalry. They'll never be able to in the history of, as long as football's alive, catch up series-wise. But if they're able to win this last game as conference rivals, that'll be a good way to go out on top. Since their loss to Iowa State, though, Oklahoma State, I think, has been playing some of the best ball in the country, kind of up there with Kansas State. They've won 4 in a row against Kansas State, Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. Oklahoma's luck finally ran out last week, and they dropped that first game to Kansas. They exposed themselves as a bit fraudulent. I still think if they run the table, including a win in the Big 12 title game, they're still going to have a pretty good shot at getting in. They might be like that first team out, but coming off last week's loss, playing another road game here, you got to go back-to-back road games, even if it's in-state. This is a really tough bounce-back spot against a motivated OK State team. And Oklahoma State, Joe, as you touched on, pissed off about Oklahoma leaving the Big 12. I think this game's going to be chippy. It's going to be rough, and it's going to come down in the final moments. But I do think we see a lot of points in this one. I'm going to take the Cowboys as well to pull off the upset here, virtually end the Sooner season, and it keeps the Cowboys in the race for the Big 12 still. So I think this is an exciting game, and it would be a great upset. I would really like to see it as well. So I'm going to go OK State 37, Oklahoma 33. So OK State +6 and over 63. All right, third game of the week, we go to the SEC now. Number 14, Missouri at number 1, Georgia. Georgia coming off another dominant victory. 3:30 kickoff on CBS. Georgia, a 16-point favorite here over the number 14 team in the land. Over-under is 55.5. Joe, does Mizzou stand a chance to go to Athens and win this game?
No, I do not think they win this game. However, I'm taking them to cover the 16, even though the last two times we've had Georgia, on the show, I've taken the other team to cover and they haven't. I'm going to go Georgia 31, Missouri 17. So I'm going to take Mizzou plus the 16. I'm going under 55.5. I really like Missouri. I mean, they've been a very good football team. They had the loss, to LSU. It says a 10-point loss, but they had the late garbage time pick six happen, and it ended up being a 10-point final. But they were right in it to the end against LSU. And Georgia, when you look over their last couple of games, they blow out Kentucky, then they have a snoozer against Vandy. They blow out Florida. I almost wonder if coming home, off that big rivalry game, especially with this game sandwiched in between a stretch where you've had your biggest rivals in Florida, then you go this game against number 14 Mizzou, then number 11 Ole Miss comes to you the week after, and then the 18th they go to Tennessee. So I think Georgia is going to probably be on the show the next 3 weeks, unless Tennessee falls apart. But this is the biggest stretch of Georgia's season by far. I think you're going to be bound to have when I say slip up, I mean in terms of not covering a 16-point spread, but as much as a slip up as the defending two-time champs can really have. Brock Bowers being out, didn't really seem to affect him last week. I don't know how much it'll affect him this week, but I'm just kind of banking on Georgia having a little bit of a slow start and Mizzou covering that 16 points.
Yeah, the past few times that Georgia's had this big number against a pretty competent SEC team, I fell to the trap and oh, no way Kentucky loses by more than 14. No way Florida loses by more than 14, and they did it. So I'm not going to fall for the trap in this one. I like I said, I took both Kentucky and Florida to cover against Georgia. They both got steamrolled. 16 points is a ton for the number 4 team in the nation, even if it's against the number 1 team. But I just can't take them in this one. I'm going to have to go with Georgia 38, Mizzou 20. So Georgia minus 16 and over 55.5. Mizzou did play these guys tough last year, though. At Mizzou, 26-22. I believe they were leading at one point in the fourth quarter, too. So I assume they're digging up that game film and trying to emulate a very similar game plan in that one to help them stay close. But in Missouri's last 2 trips to Athens, they've been outscored 70-6. So I'm not going to let myself fall into the trap of Mizzou keeping it close. I know this is a different Mizzou team, a better Mizzou team, and a team led by Brady Cook and Luther Burden, but those guys are going to need to go Superman against this Georgia team because they seem to starting to roll and playing their best ball as they've gotten going. And that was the thing with them at the beginning of the year, and I guess throughout the offseason that I was kind of a little bit wary with. Lost so many guys last year, and as we know, they just reload the talent and put new faces in new places and go out there and dominate. But some of that stuff takes time. You look around the NFL with some teams as well. It takes time to get these pieces moving, and it looks like Georgia is really starting to do that. So, Kirby Smart and the defensive staff there at Georgia is going to do everything to really just take Luther Burden out of the game and not let Brady Cook get going as well. So I'm going to take Georgia to win, to cover, and the over to hit in this one. But just to clarify, I haven't been on the right side of a Georgia game all year. So if you're looking to tail my picks, do it with caution because I just can't get a finger on this team. But it seems like they're starting to really be that dominant force that was expected from them at the beginning of the year. All right, our group of 5 game of the week. Both of these teams, I believe, have actually been on the show this year. I try to switch it up with these teams, but this is a really good matchup, a fun one out of the Sun Belt. Number 23, James Madison, sitting at a perfect 8-0, 5-0 in the conference at Georgia State, who's 6-2, 3-2 in the conference. Your friendly reminder that even though James Madison is undefeated running the conference, they are still ineligible for a bowl game with conference title as well, which is pretty ridiculous, but still should be a fun game. 3:30 kickoff on ESPN2. James Madison, a 5.5-point road favorite here. Over under is 54.5.
Yeah, dumbest rule in sports, as we've said, just like, Merrimack last year not being able to go in the NCAA tournament. I mean, ended up getting FDU in, and we saw that happen. But just the stupidest rule in the world. James Madison, because there's this account that tweets out the BCS, the old BCS computer, how they did the rankings. James Madison would be a top 10 team according to those metrics, which you can say what you want about that, but that's how we decided a national champ for like 15, 16 years. And the only complaints about that were there weren't enough teams that got in, to a playoff. But real quick, I just got to say this about the last game we talked about, Georgia-Mizzou, Coyle, because I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. If somehow Mizzou were to pull off the impossible, they finish with Tennessee and Florida at home, and then they go to Arkansas. So if they were to upset Georgia, there is a path for them. That's all I'm going to say. But going back to this game, I'm just going to roll with James Madison here. They're 8-0. I don't know a lot about either of these two teams, even though I think Georgia State, like you said, has already been on the show. I watched them play against UConn a little bit, which, what does that really tell you? But I really like this James Madison team. I really think they're going to go 12-0. And then I think they're going to play in some sort of postseason game, whether it be against a team that didn't make a bowl game or something. I don't think we're going to hear the end of JMU, because if they go 12-0, they deserve a shot at something. I don't know what it would be, but especially
they'll make it happen.
Oh yeah, they'll do a Pardon My Take bowl or something. Even if they play, like if Wisconsin somehow were to fall apart, James Madison, Wisconsin would be pretty funny. The Pardon My Take bowl, but yeah, I'm gonna go JMU here. Like I said, haven't watched enough of these two teams, even when we've had them on the show. Just don't know enough about them to really make a confident pick. So I'm gonna roll with the ranked team here straight up. I'll go Georgia State as the home dog to cover 5.5. I'm gonna go the under 54.5 because JMU, I remember when they went to Marshall, it was one point was 3-2 in the third quarter. It was a slugfest of a game. JMU, I think, is gonna, their defense is gonna make it ugly. Give me the Dukes. Excuse me, Dukes.
Yeah, a few just quick notes and numbers on this game. We'll go too deep on it, but Georgia State has a very good running back, Marcus Carroll, 1,060 rushing yards and 12 rushing TDs on the season. But he faces a JMU rush defense only allowing 48.9 yards per game on the ground. That's the best in the country. And they also lead the country in 39 sacks. So say all you want about them being, a former FCS team up in the Sun Belt now. Oh, if they were undefeated, they wouldn't stand a chance against some of these big teams. They're dominating at the line of scrimmage. And that is usually the biggest difference between like an SEC school and like a Sun Belt school, the guys in the trenches. And these guys are showing that they have the capability to control the game up there. So I would actually just be really intrigued to see what they would look like. I'm not advocating that they would beat one of these Ohio States or Alabamas or something like that, but just to see what they look like on the field against them, because their trench play is good. They have a shot, I think, to compete in the game if they don't turn the football over. But with that being said, I think JMU is a very balanced team. I actually have been able to check them out a few times, and that Georgia State team, they can put up some points. But if JMU needs to get in a shootout and win this one, they can. But I think ideally they would like to play it in the 50s. So I think that they're going to find a way to go on the road here, continue that undefeated season with that dominant defensive line. I have them winning this one 31-24. So James Madison -5.5 and the over of 54.5 just hitting there. All right. The game I think I'm actually looking forward to the most, just from a viewer's perspective in this one, is on this week is number 5 Washington at number 24 USC, a 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Washington is a 4-point favorite, and the over/under is 76.5. That is not a typo. That is not you didn't hear that wrong. That is the correct total, 76.5. Joe, can we go over in this game?
I believe that we will go over, because I said a couple weeks ago, I alluded to this game. I think that Washington is going to be able to commit war crimes on this USC defense. I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be a bad defensive football game in general, because I have the final score being 45-40 Washington. And that's only because both of these teams, obviously USC we've seen is just in a nosedive. They really saved their season by not letting Cal get that 2-point conversion. Because I said this before the Utah game. I said, if they lose, you're going to start hearing people say Caleb Williams should sit out. Immediately after the game, you have Emmanuel Acho tweeting out Caleb Williams should sit the rest of the year. USC still has to finish with Washington this game, Oregon, that's at Oregon next week, and then UCLA to end the season. There's no reason why USC can't finish 7-5 after that great start. I don't know. I guess the only reason why I think it's going to be a close game is because I just don't see Caleb Williams going down without a fight. Even the Utah loss, they did only lose by 2 points. Like I know Notre Dame killed them, and that kind of started the spiral a little bit. But they only lost to Utah by 2, so it's not like Utah blew them out. They beat Cal by 1 barely, but that's just because their defense is that bad. Caleb Williams is going to be able to keep him in this game. There's a reason why he's the number 1 ranked quarterback heading into the draft next year. I think Penix is going to have a great game, kind of put himself back in the front of the Heisman race because we've seen him kind of stumble back after the last 2 weeks. I can't have J.J. McCarthy win the Heisman. I just can't. That's a little side note. Not because he's a bad quarterback. I just want to say that I just don't think he is the best quarterback or the best player in college football. I think he's just getting a lot of benefit because Michigan is still undefeated. That being said, I think USC is going to keep it close, not close enough. Being at home is going to make a difference. I think USC fans are actually going to be able to show out, have the stadium pretty packed, pretty rocking. I wouldn't be shocked if you see like Snoop Dogg, Will Ferrell, all the old USC celebs on the sidelines. It's going to be a great game. Love that this is the 7:30 game. I believe we're going to have this and the next game we're going to talk about. This will definitely be a 2 TV type of Saturday night. Looking forward to it. But give me the Huskies.
Yeah, this was looking at the schedule coming into the week before the lines came out. This is one of those games where I didn't care what the number was. It could have been 80.5, and I would have taken the over. It just like the Iowa Northwestern game coming up this week. That line is 29.5. I don't care. I'm still taking the under on it. And I also think Washington is going to flat out dominate this game against USC and win this one by double digits. I mean, the fact that USC defensive coordinator Alex Grinch still has a job is insane. Here are some numbers to show you how bad this USC defense has been. Over USC's last 6 games, they've given up 28 or more points in every game. They've given up 34 or more in 5 of their last 6, and they've given up 40 or more in 4 of those 6 games. They just gave up 49 points to a terrible Cal team. And then last year to end the season, USC gave up 38 or more points in each of their last games. Or excuse me, each of their last 8 games, they gave up more than 38 points. So just an unreal run of terrible defense from USC. Washington, I think, has a legit chance to go out there and score 60 on them in this one. The Huskies average 501 yards per game on offense, which is 5th in the country, and USC is averaging 482.9 yards per game, which is 11th in the country. And then when you look at scoring offense, USC is 2nd with 45.9 points per game, and Washington is 9th with 40.4 points per game. So kind of weird there. You have an exact score of 45-40, just the average is flipped, but these are 2 offenses led by 2 of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. So you were touching on Caleb Williams and Michael Penix. I think they're both going to be able to move the ball with ease in this one, but I just think the difference is Washington, when it push comes to shove at the end of games and whatnot, they're going to be able to step up and get a stop. Caleb Williams will have to have the game of his life to outscore this Washington team just based off of what Washington's going to be able to do to USC. So I think Washington easily keeps that streak alive of 28 or more points, and I think that they win this one pretty comfortably too. I have them winning 56-42, so we go way over the 76.5, and Washington covers the 4. I think if you even want to move the line in this one, that's how confident I feel in Washington. If you want to move the line, move it to like 7, get that number juiced up a little more, get yourself some more money. I think Washington wins this one big. So Washington 56, USC 42. All right, our final game of the week, another very, very important matchup that will determine a lot of the SEC West going forward, as these are the top 2 teams in the conference right now. Number 13 at LSU at number 8 Alabama, a 7:45 kick on CBS. Alabama is a 3-point favorite, and the over/under is 60. Can LSU go to Tuscaloosa, Joe, and get this upset done?
Yes. I have LSU winning this game 29-28. Another 2-point conversion. I think they're going to win this game. I know Bama is Bama. I'm not taking anything away from that. But we've seen this Bama team, like Tennessee, I know they ended up pulling away late, winning by 14. But we see, they only win by 6 against A&M. They only beat Arkansas by 3. This isn't your typical Bama dominance. LSU, I think, is the best team they've played since they've played Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. It's been a little while. I don't think A&M is that great. Arkansas definitely is not that great. And then Tennessee, I just can't trust Joe Milton at QB. Hopefully Coyle's okay there. I know he's coughing like crazy, but I think LSU is a better team than Alabama. Obviously, this game being in Bama is going to make it a lot more difficult for LSU to win. But looking at the SEC West really quick, if Bama loses this game, it would throw in a three-way tie between them, Ole Miss, and LSU. Ole Miss and LSU already played. Ole Miss won. I don't know how that tiebreaker would work because they all would have beaten each other.
Ole Miss still has to play Georgia as well.
Yeah, that'll probably make the difference there. But so this really would open up the door for LSU going forward. Like I said,
Joe, if the tiebreaker works, if it works the same way as the Big Tens, with like they're saying, if Ohio State loses to Michigan and Penn State beats Michigan, then Penn State would go to the Big Ten title game. Then I think in this scenario, Ole Miss, as long as they win out, they would have to beat Georgia, I think they would go to the SEC title game just because they beat LSU. LSU beat them. I don't know why, but I think that's the way the wheel would turn.
I'll take your word for it because I'm not smart enough for figuring that out. I do think it would be really fun if we just ended up with an Ole Miss Missouri SEC title game after all this, like just completely like not anything that anyone was expecting. But at the end of the day, it comes down to quarterback play. I'm taking Daniels over Milroe any day of the week, even if Bama wins this game by 20, I still would take Daniels as my QB. We saw Milroe when he had to go up against Quinn Ewers, got outdueled. I think that LSU is going to be able to win this game. I think Brian Kelly, now that he has SEC talent, is showing that he hasn't been getting outcoached against Saban as much as it appeared when he was at Notre Dame. I do think LSU wins this game. I think they're a lot better. I think Bama is, like I said, Bama's still a very, very good team. They're just not the Alabama of old. Like Alabama doesn't put the fear of God in my heart anymore when I watch them play. I'm going to knock on wood. That's going to come back to bite me, that quote. They're so going to win the national title now. But give me LSU in this game.
Yes, for much as I just ranted and raved about Washington and USC's offense, LSU is actually first in the country with 47.4 points per game and first in total offense at 552.9 yards per game, which is pretty insane considering October just ended and they already have 2 losses to their name and their offense has been that good. That just goes to show you how bad this defense has been, letting down such a historic offense this year. But they have the chance to flip the script this weekend against Alabama and put themselves right there back in the race for the SEC West crown. I doubt a title appearance or a college football playoff berth is still kind of on the radar for them. Some absolute chaos would have to happen, including winning that SEC title game, but still getting to the SEC championship back-to-back years in the first 2 years under Brian Kelly, I think that would be a pretty good first 2 years, even if they have these 2 or 3 losses by the end of the year. But this is another one where I thought this was more of a closer rivalry, but Bama has dominated this rivalry all time, leading the series 55-27-5, including winning 8 of the last 10. The 2 games of those 10 that LSU found a way to win were in 2019 when they had arguably the best offense in college football history, and last year's team that won that game in overtime, 32-31 on the 2-point conversion. So this is a historic rivalry that Alabama has really just been dominating. This is a game where I think the winner of the first half in this one will win the game. That it might sound kind of stupid and simple there, but I think whoever's winning this game at halftime is going to win the game, because if LSU is able to jump on Bama early, like you said with Daniels and this great offense that they have, and get out to a lead, I don't think Bama has the firepower to come back from behind against this high-powered offense and go score for score with them. If Alabama can control the tempo, play it at a slower pace, make it more like a 24, 21, 27 type, 23 type game, I think that they're going to be in better shape. The over in their last 5 games for LSU, they've scored 34 or more points in each one of those games. In Alabama's last 5 games, they've held their opponents to 21 or less. So we're looking at high-powered offense versus a very good defense. Bama shutting down the high-powered Ole Miss offense a few weeks ago, holding them to only 10 points. That gave me a big reason to believe that they can stifle this LSU offense a bit. And having the home field, it matters the most, I think, in college football out of any sport. I think having that home field advantage is so key. So I think Nick Saban finds a way to get it done again, slows down this LSU high-powered offense, and they keep this one kind of low scoring. I'm going to go Alabama 27, LSU 23. So Bama -3 in the under of 60. All right, Joe, time for your lock of the week. We already know mine, wink, wink, USC Washington game. I won't say it to keep the lock phrase out of it, but that is my play as always. Joe, what is your lock of the week? You've lost your last two after a scorching hot start to the season.
Yeah, we've gone kind of cold. 2 weeks ago, UCF is on my do not bet list. If they're in a game, I'm not touching anything about UCF, covering against Oklahoma and blowing it to Baylor. Then last week, Cole, you were at the game. Penn State, I don't know what happened. I had the game on. I was watching the game. I kept expecting Penn State to wake up. They never did. They ended up winning by 9. But just a weird game. Like Penn State seemed like they were all out of sync.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they had a hangover in a bad way from, losing to Ohio State. Like they were sulking and just expecting, Indiana to roll over for them, and they didn't. Kind of like your youth football coach used to always tell you, this team, not rolling over. Now Penn State has a really tough stretch with at Maryland, home against Michigan, and then 6-2 Rutgers comes to town. Shout out to Scarlet Knights. But weird game Penn State. But anyways, we're going past that. I am going Liberty -16.5. They're at home against Louisiana Tech. This is a Saturday game. The midweek Conference USA is over. That is a 6 o'clock kick on CBS Sports Network. They are -16.5. Liberty Flames. Louisiana Tech just hasn't been good. Hank Bachmeier, who we talked about week 0, Coyle, we thought was going to have a pretty good season going to the Conference USA. It's been anything but that. He has not had a good year. Louisiana Tech is a not good football team. And I really like Liberty. Liberty, the quietest undefeated team in the country right now, 8-0. If they win out, I've been saying it like with Air Force as well. Liberty goes undefeated. You're going to see them in a New Year's 6 bowl game, which is crazy considering the fact that a couple of years ago, Liberty was like an FCS school. Now here they are, with 4 games left, one of those being UMass. Like they finish with Louisiana Tech, Old Dominion, UMass, and Liberty. 3 of their last 4 games are at home.
They play themselves in the last game?
I kept looking at the away team again, dude. That's the second time I did that today. They're at UTEP to end the season. Excuse me.
So they should be 12-0.
They knock on wood. I don't want to give them the kiss of death phrase like I've given a bunch of other teams, but
Wazoo.
Wazoo's so bad now. I ruined that program. I'm sorry to everyone out in Pullman, Washington, because that one's on me. I'll take that one right on the chin. But I really like Liberty 16.5. I think, what they've done to the other top competition in that conference already. They went to Western Kentucky when they were wearing the, position helmets, the coolest helmets I've ever seen, and they dominated Western Kentucky. So I think they should be able to make pretty light work of Louisiana Tech. Give me the Flames -16.5.
All right, and now for the dog of the day or underdog money line play. I'm going to go with Arizona. They're +3 at home, +125 on the money line, taking on a UCLA team where the UCLA defense this year has been awesome. And the did I say offense? Did I say offense or defense there?
I think you said defense. I'm not gonna lie, I was pulling up my dog, so I kind of wasn't fully.
Yeah, the defense for UCLA has been awesome this year, while the offense has been up and down, and you never really think of that with a Chip Kelly team. But this is an Arizona team that has been stingy all season. They've been fighting hard. They finally broke through last week against Oregon State. You're getting the points with them again at home this week. I think there's another good spot for this Arizona program that's on the rise. So I like the momentum they've been building, and I look for them to continue to ride that this week. So I'm going to go Arizona +125 at home against UCLA. That is my underdog of the week.
My dad's watching Monday night. I don't know what he's screaming at, but I haven't heard him scream like that. Not at a Steelers game in a long time. But my dog of the day is Colorado. Colorado +430 on the money line at home. +13.5 is -115 at the moment. They host Oregon State. Oregon State has now fallen to number 16 in the country. I was very high on the Beavers early, loved the Beavers, but I think last week's loss might be the straw that kind of breaks the camel's back. They have their second straight road game, this one against Colorado, flying down to Arizona, back up to Oregon State, and then going back to Colorado. I think the travel's going to have a little bit of a wear. Even though I love DJ, like I was saying, being down, or being out west now, I still he has a little bit of the smell of Clemson. And passing wise, he's 122 for 206 on the season. So not really, impressive numbers. Through 8 games, he's thrown for 1,791 yards, 17 TDs to 4 picks. That's really good. But I really think, Colorado, with the star power they have, if they can just, get back in the gear, I think they can really, if they didn't lose to Stanford a couple weeks ago, they'd be 5-3, but there'd be people talking about them as a dark horse still because it's Colorado and Dion. But Dion, especially too, with this, having this game and Arizona before having 2 road games to end the season, I think they really need to get one. And I think this is the perfect game for a team like Colorado. Everyone's down you. Everyone's now left you for dead. You were the fun story at the beginning of the year. Now everyone's forgotten about you. Let's show them who we are. I think Colorado wins the game outright. I think they beat Oregon State. I was thinking about making Colorado plus 13.5 my lock of the week. I'm going to definitely bet that as well. I think Colorado wins the game outright.
All right. Well, that will do it for week 10. After this week, we will have a lot more, storylines to break down between LSU, Alabama, whether Washington can go to USC and get a win or not. Does Georgia stay unbeaten against Missouri? What happens in the last Bedlam game, Kansas State, Texas? There's going to be a lot of games where some teams get eliminated from playoff contention after this week, and some teams potentially make a jump and make an argument for themselves. So big week coming up in college football. As we said, too, we get the first college football playoff rankings out as well. So we'll have you covered on everything, as always, here at Beef Up Front. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like, subscribe, and we will talk soon.